Grateful to have you here and along for the ride this morning. Also very grateful to have with us North Carolina U.S. Senator Ted Budd joins us this morning. And Senator, thanks so much for your time this morning. I know it is a incredibly busy time for you.
Mark, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Listen, it's kind of the top story of the day. You're obviously up in Washington. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about it, but last night, a just horrific midair collision right there off the end of the runway over the Potomac River at Reagan National. Are you hearing anything kind of new this morning outside of what came out in the press conference today?
Again, my heart goes out to the families and all involved. As coming from a family of pilots, being a pilot myself, having a brother that flew Black Hawk, knowing some of the folks that fly these missions, and also, traveling on commercial airliners in and out of Washington every week. And my heart just breaks for the situation. It essentially is now a recovery effort. This will be ongoing. We've got a new administration that will be overseeing the NTSB and the FAA. NTSB will be leading the investigation. I just want to let folks know that are listening that we haven't had a major commercial airliner crash in 16 years. So flying is safe, and this will be a very rigorous process to get answers for the flying public and especially for the families of those who have lost loved ones.
Yeah, that's for sure. You have been an incredibly busy individual these last few months. Obviously, Hurricane Helene threw a wrench into the works for everybody. But yesterday, I got your press release where you and Tom Tillis, as well as some other colleagues, have introduced a bipartisan bill to help restore access to Western North Carolina homes. And this is something that kind of follows on the heels of President Trump's executive order, ordering the Department of Transportation and FEMA to make sure that all private roads and bridges were repaired completely. If you can, kind of give us the 30,000-foot perspective on this bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, when I talk to folks in Western North Carolina, their greatest fear is being forgotten. So my focus, along with my colleagues that are either in the House of Representatives or Senator Tillis, we are working in lockstep to make sure that these people get what they need and the government is there for them in a time when it's actually supposed to be doing something. That's why we're trying to keep the government from doing all these distracting things. The bill you're referring to is the Restoring Access to Mountain Homes Act, and it allows FEMA public assistance to be used for permanent repair of those roads and bridges. For those of you, for those out there that you go into the hollers and you realize there's a lot of access to a home or communities that goes across a creek, and it's been privately built. It may have been there for generations, and you can't get to these homes without it. There are gullies and creeks, and so this allows FEMA individual assistance, which is currently capped at $42,500 for all expenses. But this, we see a $350 million gap between what's funded and what's required to rebuild these roads and bridges, and this helps overcome that gap so that folks out west can get to their homes.
Senator, how assured are you that we are going to see a change with the way FEMA operates? As someone who was in Western North Carolina and in Asheville from like minute zero of that storm, I don't want to say that they haven't done anything because I know that's not the case. But to say that their performance has been even a sea-level grade would be a stretch for me. Do you feel reassured that this new administration is going to do something to make sure that FEMA performs the way that FEMA is supposed to perform?
That's what November 5th of last year, Election Day, was all about, is not doing business as usual. For too long, when you have something from Katrina forward in 2005, for the last 20 years, people have been upset by the way, and they've had expectations out of alignment with the reality that FEMA has unfortunately delivered. When Trump comes in, when a new office comes in, they have a landing team. So even though we've got to go through all these nominations, right, there's a team in place already out of the gate. A lot of times they're people you don't know, but they're really good people that he's put in place. I've talked with the guy that's heading up FEMA right now. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's operated on emergency teams all around the country. As an administrator, he knows how to lead. He knows how to do it on the ground as a SEAL. And he was very responsive to my concerns for Western North Carolina when I talked with him last week. Took down the concerns that I'm hearing from on the ground. So to answer your question, the answer is 100% sure that this will be different than before. How far we can run hard in the next 2 years, I don't know. But let's remember, this is a long-term process of recovery. We got to work now. Staying long-term means that our commitment is long-term, but there are things that need to be done right now. And I think the team from President Trump is getting in place.
One of the other acts of legislation that you have been a staunch supporter of, and one who basically shepherded this piece of legislation all the way through the process, is the now new law, the Laken Riley Act, that was signed in, I believe it was yesterday. Laken Riley's mother was there. I saw you there at the signing ceremony as well. How big of a lift was this to get this through?
Well, I think going back to November 5th and what people elected us to do, the election was about two things. People felt unsafe and that things were unaffordable. And so President Trump said, I'm going to get us back on the path to safety and prosperity. This was item number one, and that's safety. And this was the most significant immigration enforcement law since 1996. This is about detaining people for minor crimes before they commit major crimes. If you look at the tragic case of Laken Riley, who, when I talked, and when you at UGA, University of Georgia students come through, and I happen to bump into them in the hallway, I'd say, tell me about where this happened. They are shocked. This is a nice, safe area where nobody gives a second thought to their personal safety. And that's why all the students there, this could have happened on any of the great North Carolina campuses as well. But it happened to happen there. And had this person, Ibarra, been detained for shoplifting, endangering children, or illegally entering our country, then this would not have happened to Laken Riley. And that's one of the things I shared with the mother. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being a leader on this. But I'm so sorry it even had to happen. And, she almost broke down in tears, and I did too. I'm a father of three, and two of those are daughters about the same age as Laken, and it breaks my heart as well.
Are you pleased with the results that you're seeing so far with how the southern border is being handled now, as opposed to how it was being handled with the other administration?
I cannot express how pleased I am. First of all, how upset my opinion doesn't matter. The people of North Carolina matters. And when I talk to folks all around North Carolina, I talk to sheriffs. They say every single county in North Carolina is now a border county because of Joe Biden's policies. It was a dereliction of duty. And now we're seeing somebody that takes it serious. They just take the law seriously, and they give law enforcement the tools that they need, the resources that they need. And they're already taking the worst criminals out there, and they're detaining them, they're deporting them, and they're doing the right thing. This is not about somebody that's helping pick our ag crops, that may have questionable paperwork. This is about somebody they are the worst criminals that have led to the fentanyl crisis, loss of life, personal endangerment, crime, and it's gone rampant. And President Trump's dealing with it because that's what that's what the voters asked him to do in the election.
It's pretty amazing, the 180 turn that we saw with the president of Colombia over the weekend. That may have been one of the fastest political 180s I think I've ever seen before.
Yeah, so there's been 4 intervening years for President Trump to think about how he wants to do it better. And I think that would have been his impulse in 2017. But for him, having been a business person, never in office in his whole life, he probably had the impulse, but it was stopped or slowed down or entered the bureaucratic process, of State Department. But now it's just this is what the American people want done. And these people need to be out of our country that are here illegally and causing us harm. And we're sending him back. And he was very forceful and direct. And that's a message for the rest of the world to take us seriously again.
Senator, I do want to ask you about something that is kind of very near and dear to our heart here at Radio Ranch in Asheville. And that is the Save the AM Radios in Cars Act. And just kind of wanted to get your take on where you stand on that particular bill. And is that something that you could get behind if it's put in front of you?
Wow, you're lobbying me right so early in the morning here, Mark. No, thanks for the question. It is something I've been on. There's an AM infrastructure. If you see the blue signs and you're going in, it says tune to whatever AM channel. If you don't have an AM radio in your car, you can't do that if there's an emergency. And so even though people may listen to there's so many things from podcasts to FM to all other sorts of media nowadays, I think that infrastructure needs to be preserved and protected, and we need to keep AM radios around. And plus, in the evening on a clear night, I love to listen to them. Nothing like it's like listening to an old LP album, but it's something we need to hang on to even in this modern world.
Picking up those clear channels late at night, are you?
Sure will.
There you go. My guest this morning, North Carolina U.S. Senator Ted Budd, is with us. And Senator, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for doing the people's work. We certainly rely on you to keep our voices heard in Washington, D.C., and we'd love to have you back whenever you've got time.
Thanks so much. Look me up on bud.senate.gov. We'd love to help all of your listeners in any way they need.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Senator. Have a great rest of your day.